How many times have you heard someone express that the education system is not fit for purpose? Have you heard students question the relevance for some of the content that they are needing to learn? Have you ever asked yourself, why is the education system the way it is? What are some of the reasons for some of the problems that currently exist in the education system? How do teachers manage learning for their students in a system that many consider to be broken? Welcome back to Global Teachership Hub, and today we are going to be looking at 7 problems within the education system. And these problems aren't just confined to specific regions of the world. They are a global set of problems because the education system we have now is something that started and spread globally. And though different regions of the world have been taking measures to try and address these problems, the fundamental problems with the education system have not really been addressed. People have tweaked and tried to transform their education for their region. However, the grander problems with the education system as we know it now have not really been fixed, and because it hasn't been dismantled and recreated. There are several specific factors that affect the education system and prohibit advancement in just about every region in the world. And so we're going to be exploring some of those factors. And the first one that we're going to talk about is creativity and individuality versus compulsory program. Now, in a lot of ways, some schools and some regions have tried to see how they can incorporate creativity and individuality in their learning. And in so doing, they are making sure that it becomes a more inclusive programs. And there are different pathways that they can take in order to access their level of creativity that they want to explore and see how that impacts and improves their learning. And also being able to use individuality, whether through differentiation or through optional pathways that students can take. However, the fundamental parts of education are still compulsory in a lot of ways. And there are some places who try to make this compulsory less that way by giving students options and breaking up certain subjects into units or modules that students can opt when they're going to be doing those, and use that level of individuality so that they are studying at their own pace. However, the fact of the matter is they still have to study those units, and therefore it's still a compulsory program that they're following with some adjustment for individuality. The second factor that we're going to be looking at is leadership duration versus quality. And oftentimes in certain regions of the world, leadership in any school goes on for a career. So it's a lifetime career for many people. And they are in those same schools for an extended period of time, which does not necessarily mean that this is what's best for the school, because sometimes consistency and consistent improvement is important. However, the variation and difference and change and growth that is necessary sometimes gets stifled after people are working in schools for extended periods of time, and new fresh creativity and ideas need to be coming into those education system for that change to be evident. And so sometimes we give way to duration of leadership rather than the quality of leadership that is required for schools to thrive, to succeed in a way that is providing for their students effectively and efficiently according to that which their needs desire. And so we need to look into how we can cater for that in reducing the amount of just management that we have of schools and education, and incorporate a lot more leadership at the very core of those educational institutions. Number 3, doing more versus getting more done. Now, we know that teachers are some of those individuals in careers who wear the most different professional hats because they have to be all sorts of different professions to meet the needs of their students. And as a result, a lot of burden and added pressure is placed on them to fill these gaps and these voids that needs to be addressed in society. And this creates an opportunity where they need to do more. And because they need to do significantly more, they are not necessarily getting more done because they're overburdened and their threshold is long past, and they're focusing on all these other things that they're needing to do to make the holistic child. And in so doing, some of the times they are not getting as much done as they would want to because of the length and breadth of what they need to do. And so prioritizing the things that teachers are focusing on doing will help to improve the education sector in its totality. Number 4 is the constant modification versus moving ahead. Now, what I mean by this is that the education system, ever so often, we get a new revised specification or modification of what needs to be taught at different stages in the education journey for students. And what this is doing is just patching something that we already know needs full repair and transformation. And it is not completely doing the job, but it is fixing it for a period or for a season. And what we actually want is a reconstructed education system that allows us to indeed move ahead with the times that we are in, because we have had so many different revolutions in the time since we've had the education system that we currently do. And we need to make sure that the education that we're providing our young people is fit for purpose. There are so many things that they need to learn that currently we are trying to squeeze into different aspects of the curriculum, which puts strain on the amount of time needed to teach that curriculum and to teach it to its best. And teachers are needing to squeeze it and fit it in so that they can cover it. Now, if that's what they're needing to do, then we can already consider whether or not this is going to be done to its best quality. And that is where we have a problem, because we are not indeed moving ahead with the education in the way that it needs to be done. And therefore, we need to contemplate whether or not it is that we keep patching the education system or we rebuild it altogether. Number 5, high test scores versus learning. Now, in many education systems, the primary focus is on the test scores. We have league tables created specifically for this. We have elite groups of schools specifically because of this. And therefore, the impact that this is having on students, causing them excessive stress to be able to fit these different demands in to be able to get those high score. And in a lot of cases, it is impacting on the quality of learning that the students are actually doing, because they're primarily focused on what do I need to know in order to pass or to meet this target that I need to meet on this assessment in order to be able to get to the next stage in my learning journey, more so than to think about the quality experience that they are capitalizing on when they are going through their learning phases. Number 6, we're looking at the relative quality versus actual quality. Now, when we think about it relatively, certain educational facilities are deemed to provide more quality for students than others are. However, in actuality, when you look at what teachers are needing to do on the ground to add value to students, you'll recognize that the quality that is being provided, where more value needs to be added, is way more than in institutions where students are already there, very refined, and what needs to happen is for their journey and their flight path of learning that just needs to be maintained. And this creates an unbalanced experience for not just the teachers who work in those institutions, but also the students who are coming out of those institutions, where excessive amount of value needs to be added to bring students up to where they're expected to be for their age or by the time they finish that stage of learning. And number 7, accessibility versus profitability. Now, because education in certain regions have become such a business, it is something that people are looking into to make money rather than necessarily make the learning accessible enough for students so that they can excel and thrive. And at some point, there becomes a balance that needs to strike with who is actually responsible for the learning, the achievement, and the attainment of students, especially at the points where they are needing to pay money into an institution where they need to get that learning. It also looks at and emphasizes the amount of debt that students are needing to accrue in order to get a quality education, many of whom are doing so and leaving with degrees and other forms of qualification that really and truly is not even preparing them enough for the world that they're going to be entering in, because so many people have studied, undergraduates and postgraduates who've left their institution and haven't even taken up a first job in the field in which they've studied. All of these different factors that we've highlighted here today are only a tip of the iceberg about some of the problems that exist with our current education system. And delving deeper will give us an insight into a lot more that exists. So what are some of the problems that you find with the education system where you are in your region, whether it is directly with the school you're working in or the local educational authority or the academic trust that you are working within? And please give us some of those insights in the comments below so we can have an understanding of some of the other problems that exist with the current education system. In the meantime, as teachers, we have a duty to fulfill where we educate our students to the best of our ability so that they can become the best that they can aspire to in the world that they're entering. Thank you for staying with us here on Global Teachership Hub.